Paradigms control the results in your life. They have the power over everything in your life, from your relationships to your income. And when you shift your paradigm, everything in your life improves. Hello, I'm Bob Proctor, and I want to welcome you to Paradigm Shift, where we are going to teach you how to make quantum leaps in the improvement of the results in your life. You know, to do this, we have to get in and talk about the mind, because paradigms, it's all about the mind. If you stop the next 10 people walking down the street and ask them what a paradigm is, they're going to look at you and they're not going to know the answer to it. So you may not know the answer to it, but it's a part of the conditioning in our mind. And to help us in this particular show, we're going to be talking about developing the higher faculties of the mind. Now, when it comes to talking about the mind, we've got to get an image to work with. You see, no one's ever seen the mind, and we think in pictures. If I asked you to think of your automobile, you'd get an image of the automobile on the screen of your mind. If I asked you to think of the refrigerator in your kitchen, you'd get an image of the refrigerator on the screen of your mind. However, when I asked you to think of your mind, what image do you get? You see, most people don't have an image. And unfortunately, when there's no image, there's confusion. When there's confusion, we immediately start thinking of something else. And that's precisely why most people stay stuck. You see, our mind controls our results, and it's our results that we want to change. And if we're going to change the results, we're going to have to change what's going on inside. Now, Dr. Thurman Fleet, back around 1934, was interested in the healing arts, and he said, we're just treating the body. If you're going to have any health, you've got to treat the whole person. So he originated this image of the mind. I've been using it now for 38 years. I have shared this image with people all over the world, and I have been focusing on helping people improve their income. I've watched people going from earning a couple of thousand a year to over $1 million because they understood how to make the necessary changes inside so that they can enjoy the changes outside. Now, you know, Napoleon Hill was a phenomenal author, and he talked a lot about the mind. He talked a lot about our thinking. He talked a lot about our conscious mind and the way we think. Do you know that there's a thought power flowing into our consciousness, and we can think anything we want, anything. Play with it for a moment. Start to let your mind wander. You can think of the beach. You can think of a lake. You can think of fishing. You can think of golfing. You can think of playing with a child. Just like that, you can change your thoughts and your consciousness. But you know something? That doesn't necessarily change your behavior. You see, your thoughts are in the top half. That's what we refer to as the conscious mind. The subconscious is what's controlling the behavior of your body. It controls every action you're involved in. Now, your actions control your results. In Napoleon Hill's book, he said an educated person is not necessarily a person with an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. He said an educated person is a person who has so developed the faculties of their mind that they can acquire anything they want or its equivalent without violating the rights of others. Do you know, I was doing a seminar for 2,000 school teachers a number of years ago. I couldn't find one teacher that could tell us what the faculties of our mind were. Now, if they didn't know what they were, they're sure not going to be able to teach us how to develop them. Do you know that we have mental faculties inside, and that's where all our power lies? And what we want to learn to do is develop those faculties. Now, let's come back to this little drawing. And we take a look at it, and I want you to take a look now at these little antennae that are sticking up from the part where the feelings are resident. Why do we feel the way we feel? We feel the way we feel because of the vibration we're in. See, feelings are a word that we invented to describe our conscious awareness of the vibration we're in. Now, we have sensory factors. We can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And do you know that you and I are conditioned to live through those sensory factors? We look at our bank account, and that tells us where we're at financially. We take a look at x-rays or listen to the doctor, and that tells us where we are physically insofar as our health is concerned. But does it really? Why do we do that? Well, we do it because we've been conditioned to do it. As a little child, we were told to listen to what I'm telling you. Well, you look at this. And then we went to school, and what did they do? They give us a sheet of paper that they called a report card. And on that report card were all the marks that we'd achieved on our last exam. And we started to let that report card dictate what kind of person we are. Does it really? Not at all. But that's the idea we're operating with, and that's the idea that's controlling many of our lives. You see, what the report card really did was tell you where your mind was at for a few minutes, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. It has absolutely nothing to do with your potential, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what you're capable of accomplishing in your life. Now, let's take a look at these higher faculties. We have reason, memory, perception, will, intuition, and imagination. And that's really what I want to talk to you about here on Paradigm Shift today. Because as we start to understand these faculties and how they work, we can literally start to take control over our life. Let's take a look at the reasoning factor. What do we do with the reasoning factor? We choose our thoughts. You see, there is a power that flows to and through us. And as that power is flowing into our consciousness, we can make anything out of it we want. That is really where all creation starts in our life. You can think anything you want. As a matter of fact, that's where your freedom comes in. You know, Viktor Frankl, a Viennese psychiatrist, a Jewish psychiatrist, that spent the war years in a camp, he said that while he was in that camp, regardless of the intellectual or physical abuse he was subjected to, no one could cause him to think something he didn't want to think. Our reasoning factor is the mental tool that we think with. Now, you know, all the great leaders all down through history have all been in complete and unanimous agreement that we become what we think about. What do you think about? Do you want to know what you're thinking about most of the time? Take a look at the results you're getting. That'll tell you exactly what's going on inside. Do you know, the sad truth is most people don't think. I had the very good fortune of working with Earl Nightingale for 5 years. He was considered the dean of personal motivation. He was an incredible human being. He and Lloyd Conant really had an impact on my life. But Earl used to say if most people said what they were thinking, they would be speechless. Now, you may laugh at that, but think about it for a few minutes. Dr. Ken McFarland, he said 2% of the people think, 3% think they think, and 95% would actually rather die than think. Henry Ford one time pointed out that thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the probable reason so few people engage in it. Now you say, well, everybody thinks. No, the truth is hardly anyone thinks. Stand back and watch people's behavior. Just study their behavior. And you know something? You're going to quickly realize they'd never do what they were doing if they were thinking. Or listen to their conversation. They'd never say what they were saying if they were thinking. The truth is, most people don't think. Well, how do they function? Well, they've tricked themselves into believing that mental activity is thinking. They're just letting whatever's going on outside of them control what's going on inside. Now, that's rather sad, but it's true. Now, go to the next one, memory. Do you know the average individual wanders around their whole life saying, I've got a terrible memory, I've got a terrible memory. I remember one time I was working with Harry Lorraine. Harry flew in from New York to Toronto. He picked up a Newsweek magazine, published every week. When he got to Toronto, it was a recent magazine that day. When he got to Toronto, he gave it to someone and asked them to cut the spine off it and go and duplicate all the pages. Now, on each page, he had taken the number of a page with black marker and big letters and rewritten the number of the page. There was around 3,000 people at that conference. Everyone was given a page. And you know, you could stand up during his presentation and you could yell out, page 26, and start reading. And wherever you stopped, he would continue. Harry Lorraine had a phenomenal memory. He stood at the door and met most people coming in, or a good number of them. And when he started, he asked them, he said, if anybody was at the door, if I met you, stand up for a few moments. He not only told everybody what their name was, if it was a difficult name to pronounce, he would spell it. Harry had a phenomenal memory. Now, you know, I remember asking Harry one time, I said, Harry, how long do you remember something? He said, till I want to forget it. You see, the truth is there's no such thing as a bad memory. There's only weak memories. Think of this for a moment. These mental faculties that we've got, they're something like our physical muscles. They're our mental muscles. And if we want to develop our mental faculties, we're going to have to exercise them. I want you to imagine if I left this arm in a sling and then lifted weights with this arm every day, what would happen? I think you'd quickly recognize that this arm would be rendered useless in a relatively short period of time, and this one would develop very powerful muscles. I often say it's fairly obvious I haven't done either of these things, but if I had, you know what would happen. You know, it's exactly the same with our mind. If we don't exercise our mind, it becomes lethargic. It becomes useless. It's been said, what we don't use, we lose. Now, take a look at those two mental faculties, reason and memory. We have the ability to think anything we want, and we become what we think about. We've got a phenomenal memory. We can remember anything. You see, memory is developed through association. Not just association, but ridiculous association. I want to recommend you go and buy a good book on memory. Now, if you get a good book on memory, you're going to find that there's many chapters in the book. One is to remember names, another one's numbers, another one's places. If you want to remember names, that's what most people would really like to do, just take the section on names and study that, study nothing else, and work at it. Do you know, if you worked at that every day for 90 days, just developing the technique of remembering names, pretty soon you would be considered an extraordinary thing by all your friends. They'd say you'd been talented. They'd say you've been born with a photographic memory. The truth is you haven't. Not any more than I have or anybody else. So as you work at this, everything in your life is going to change. Now let's take it then a look at the next mental faculty, is perception. What are we talking about here? We're talking about our point of view. We're talking about how we look at a situation. You'll often see two people in total opposition, and they both think they're right. The truth is they both are right. You know, I have a book that I hold up in a seminar. It's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I've been carrying this book with me since 1963. And on the one side, it's a black leather cover on the book. On the one side, it says Think and Grow Rich in gold stamping. Gold's almost worn off now, but it is there. On the other side, there's nothing. Now, I will frequently stand in front of a person and hold that book up. They're staring at it. All they can see is what's on the cover of the book. And then I look at the person and I say, I'm going to tell you there's nothing printed on the cover of that book. Am I right or wrong? And they'll immediately say I'm wrong. Now, I said, if I insist that there's nothing on the cover of the book, what have I done? I have drawn your conscious attention to what is printed on the cover of the book. You see, I am causing you to focus on what is in front of you. I'm not causing you to look at it from my point of view. I'm causing you to look at it from your point of view. And they'll insist that I'm wrong. And then I turn the book around. Well, they don't want to let go of the fact I'm wrong, but I said there's nothing on the book. And there's nothing on the book where I was looking at. What was I doing? I was looking at the opposite side of the same thing. We're both looking at the book. Now, I point out there's two sides to the book. And since that person's facing me or I'm facing them, what I consider the right side of the book, they'll consider the left side. What I consider the left, they consider the right. Think of this. This whole universe operates by law. Dr. Wernher von Braun said that the natural laws of this universe are so precise that we don't have any difficulty building spaceships. We can send people to the moon, and we can time the landing with the precision of a fraction of a second. One of these laws is the law of polarity. The law of polarity decrees that everything has an opposite. It's the flip side to the coin, the right side to the book, the left side, the front, the back. Well, you might consider this the next time you disagree with someone. And you might be saying they're wrong. They're right from their point of view. It might not be taking them where they want to go, but their point of view is still just as every bit as accurate and as right as yours. So you see, it's not what we're looking at, it's how we're looking at it. You know, until I was 26 years old, I looked at the side of me that wasn't capable of doing anything. I never accomplished anything. Nothing. I failed at almost everything I ever did. School, I went into the Navy, I went in an ordinary seaman, come out a naval seaman. Then I went to work in factories and bars, and I was sitting in a fire hall when I picked up Napoleon Hill's book. And I started to study it. And that got me to think. I started to use my higher faculties. And I stopped, and I used to think, wonder what I am capable of doing. You see, what I was doing, I was looking.